Hey, welcome back to Compounding Quietly. The biggest ETF in the world is not the most exciting one, and that might be exactly why it belongs in your portfolio. If VOO has been on your mind lately, you're not alone. Let's get into it. Every few months, there is a new fund that captures the conversation. A thematic play, a sector rotation, something that sounds more precise, more responsive to the current moment. And during those cycles, the quiet ones get overlooked. VOO doesn't promise anything dramatic. It doesn't try to outguess the market. It doesn't rotate into trends or hedge against headlines. It simply tracks the 500 largest publicly traded companies in the United States, weighted by market capitalization. And it has grown into the single largest ETF in the world by assets under management. That fact is worth sitting with for a moment, not because of the size itself, but because of what that size reflects. Millions of investors across decades chose this fund over nearly every other option available to them. They chose simplicity. They chose low cost. They chose to stay. When markets become uncertain, the instinct is to look for something more tailored, something more defensive, something that feels like it matches the current environment more precisely. That instinct is understandable. Watching the market move while holding something broad and steady can feel passive, almost irresponsible. But most of that discomfort is not about performance. It's about the feeling that you should be doing something different. The question most investors are actually carrying isn't whether VOO has performed well. They already know it has. The deeper question is, this is holding something simple and broad, still the right move when everything around you feels complicated? That is exactly what this video is here to help you think through. Let me take you to a moment many investors recognize. The market drops 10% over a few weeks. A different fund is getting attention, one that rotated correctly, or tilted toward the right sector at the right time. And the thought creeps in, maybe I should have been in that instead. That moment is not an analysis. It's a comparison made under pressure. And comparisons made during volatility rarely lead to better decisions. They lead to switching often right before the recovery begins. Your criteria need to be clear before that moment arrives, not during it. Let's talk about what VOO actually is, and more importantly, why its structure matters to how you make decisions. VOO is issued by Vanguard and tracks the S&P 500 index. That index holds approximately 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the United States, weighted by market capitalization. When a company grows, its weight in the index grows with it. When a company shrinks or is outperformed over time, it is eventually replaced. The composition updates itself, and VOO follows that change automatically. This is not a passive strategy in the sense that nothing ever happens. It's a strategy that allows the market's own performance to determine where capital is concentrated. The index does the work of selection. You do the work of holding. Think about what that looks like in practice. Imagine an investor who purchased VOO 10 years ago and made no further decisions after that. They did not sell when interest rates rose sharply. They did not move to cash when recession headlines dominated every financial channel. They did not rotate when a new investment theme emerged, and their existing holdings started to feel outdated. They simply held, and they captured the compounding of the largest, most liquid companies in the world across an entire decade. That outcome wasn't the result of exceptional timing. It was the result of a structural decision made once, and then consistently respected. Coming back to the original question, why has VOO become the largest ETF in the world? The answer is not marketing. It's not brand recognition alone. It's cost, and the way cost shapes compounding over long periods. VOO's expense ratio sits at 0.03% per year. For every $10,000 invested, the annual fee is $3. At that level, the drag on compounding is nearly invisible. And when you are investing across decades, cost becomes one of the most consequential variables in your final outcome. Many investors look at two similar funds and focus on a return difference of 0.5% or 1%. They assume the higher returning fund is the better choice. But if the lower returning fund costs 0.5% less per year, that cost difference compounds silently alongside your returns, year after year. Over 20 years, a fee gap that looked small in year one has quietly consumed a meaningful portion of what you thought you were building. The fund that felt like the slightly worse option may have left you with more. VOO's structure makes that drag almost negligible. That is not a small advantage. Over the time frame most retirement investors are working with, it is a structural edge that quietly accumulates. The other reason this fund has reached its current scale is its clarity of purpose. There is no thesis to maintain. There is no annual question of whether the strategy still makes sense, given what the market is doing now. The strategy is simply this: hold a broad slice of the world's largest market at near zero cost and allow time to do its work. For investors who feel the pull toward complexity, toward finding something more precise, more optimized, more actively managed, the question worth asking is not whether a theoretically better option exists somewhere. The question is whether your judgment will stay steady across time with that option. Because the real risk is not in the fund you select. The real risk is in whether you will continue to hold it when holding becomes psychologically difficult. VOO's simplicity is not a limitation. It is the source of its durability. And durability, over long periods, is what creates compounding that actually reaches you. Coming back to where we started, the biggest ETF in the world is not the most exciting one. That is not a flaw. That is the design. If you have been holding VOO and quietly wondering whether you should be doing more switching, optimizing, rotating towards something that feels more active or more attuned to current conditions, the most honest answer is this: the work is not in finding a better fund. The work is in keeping your criteria steady when the market is doing its best to make you feel like something needs to change. Volatility will continue to arrive. New funds will continue to attract attention. New themes will continue to feel urgent, then fade. And every time one of those cycles comes through, the question returns: should I be doing something different? The investors who compound most quietly and most effectively are not the ones who answer that question with perfect timing. They are the ones who have already decided what their criteria are and return to those criteria when the noise gets loud. Stability does not come from the ETF you hold. It comes from knowing clearly why you hold it. When that clarity is in place, market movement stops feeling like a signal to act. It becomes background. And background is exactly where compounding does its best work. Compounding quietly investing that gives you peace of mind. If this video helped, subscribe and leave a like. I hope this becomes a small source of strength in your investment journey. The content in this video is for general informational purposes only. All final decisions and responsibilities remain with the investor. Thank you for spending time with Compounding Quietly today.